In a new investigation, we found that werewolves seem to be more than just fantasy. They could be victims of what's known as lycanthropy. Without warning, victims say that they're turned into raging animals. The cause? Well, some believe it's a mental illness. Others, that it's the result of demonic possession. Rational men who turn into irrational, salivating beasts may be Hollywood's version of a classic werewolf. But real werewolves aren't created by makeup artists. To outsiders, this small English town of Southend-on-Sea seems quiet, picturesque, even quaint. But there are secrets here, an evil that lies just beneath the surface. You can't see what invisible danger lurks here until Bill Ramsey tells you his story.
The story began when I was 9 years old. It was a very warm summer's evening. Suddenly the air went very cold. There was a terrible stench in the air, and I just flew into the most horrendous rage. My mother and father came out to see what the hell was going on. And the fence post was 2 or 3 inches square. It was set into concrete in the ground. I pulled it out and smashed it on the floor till it broke. Well, I don't think I could do that now. My mother and father just couldn't make out why their little 9-year-old boy suddenly started to act virtually like an animal in the garden.
Bill Ramsey thought it was an isolated childhood event. He grew up, married, had children. But then the violent episode from his childhood came back to haunt the adult. Strange animal behavior would overtake him, violence he couldn't control or explain. At first he could keep it secret, but then one day, Bill Ramsey bit someone in public, and the animal inside him wasn't a secret anymore. Soon after, Ramsey attacked a nurse at Southend Hospital.
I just had the feeling that ultimately I would kill somebody.
Then, without reason or warning, Bill Ramsey attempted the murder of a police officer. He was locked up, and his life became a tangle of police, psychiatrists, and reporters.
I envisaged being in prison for the rest of my life, or in a secure mental hospital the rest of my life, for something I knew I would never be responsible for.
The unassuming man with the tragic secret was famous now as the werewolf of Southend-on-Sea.
What was causing it? I was literally felt like just committing suicide.
Word of Ramsey's bizarre behavior spread as far as rural Connecticut, where authors Lorraine and Ed Warren were intrigued. The Warrens have documented over 7,000 cases of the paranormal, and for the past 24 years lectured on demonology at major universities worldwide.
Like I told Lorraine, I said, Lorraine, I'm not going to go before the public and start talking about a werewolf. I said, it's going to be interesting to go there, see what we can do to help this man, but that's about it.
He felt that that was just stretching our credibility just a little too far to believe in werewolves. But I believe.
The Warrens went to England to investigate Ramsey's case. They had many questions. Was Ramsey a common criminal? Was he mentally ill? Or was he really a werewolf, possessed by what they believed was the devil? They spoke with Inspector Tony Belford, who was there the night Ramsey tried to murder a fellow officer.
What I actually saw that night, I couldn't really understand what it was. All I knew that it was something I'd never witnessed before. It was not natural behavior.
That night, Bill Ramsey became confused and lost control. He picked up a prostitute and without explanation drove her to the police station.
So I took the prostitute inside, leaving Sergeant Terry Fisher out in the yard with Ramsey.
He had these mad, staring eyes and this maniacal expression. That's all I can describe it as. The worst thing was what he was saying, and it was said in a very malevolent way. And I'll quote from the report I made shortly afterwards. He was saying, "The devil is in me. When the devil is in me, I am strong. I'm going to kill you. I am strong, and you are going to die."
Ramsey lunged for the sergeant's throat. Fisher, unarmed, responded with a powerful knee to the groin.
He sort of went, "Ooh," and crouched down, and he shrugged it off again and became stronger.
And when I came out into the yard, I saw Terry Fisher on the floor, just over in this location, with Bill Ramsey sitting on top of him with his hands around his throat.
Then there were bobbies that came to their sergeant's aid, and he threw them off, in their words, like they were matchsticks.
A little voice back here said, "Terence, you've come unstuck this time."
And when you see the size of this ex-police officer, you'll say to yourself, what scared him so much? Why this one experience? because he's seen something that very few people ever see. He's seen the transfiguration of a man into a wolf.
It took 5 officers to subdue Bill Ramsey, who was not under the influence of any drugs.
When I say he snarled and he growled, it was the impression of his lips turning up and showing his teeth. And I can recollect actually saying at the time in the reports that I filed that he took on the appearance of a mad dog.
Like a caged animal, Ramsey tried to escape.
His head, right arm, up to his shoulder, was outside this hole. It's difficult to actually visualise a head and an arm out there, but I can assure you I saw it, 5 or 6 firemen saw it, a doctor saw it, and I would suggest up to 7 or 8 policemen saw it, none of which could believe what we'd actually seen.
Finally, Ramsey was heavily sedated, soaked with liquid soap, and squeezed back through the hole. Badly shaken, Officer Fisher took early retirement. Inspector Belford was left to account for Ramsey's bizarre behavior.
I submit this report for your information and to have recorded the fact that it is in my opinion that this man will, if not controlled, end up causing fatal or serious injury to some person.
Criminal charges were not filed. Instead, Bill Ramsey was committed to a mental hospital.
Everybody thought I had a mental problem. It just didn't seem right. But I had no other answer. I couldn't say, well, it's not a mental problem. So, well, you do this normally then, do you? Does everybody, is this normal behaviour? Of course it was a mental problem. Where else could they send me? There was nowhere else.
After psychiatric tests failed to pinpoint the source of Ramsey's behavior, he was released.
What is left? The paranormal, the unknown. And that's where we come in.
Warrens told me that it wasn't a mental illness. I had no mental illness. I was possessed, demonically possessed with a wolf spirit. Oh, God. I've heard it all. And he kind of closed the evening with, would you come to the USA and be exercised? Exercise? Come on. Some absolute rubbish they were giving me here. But maybe. I'd been through all the other avenues, remember.
Coming up next, the shocking real-life exorcism when our frightening werewolf story continues.
The lips rolled up, the teeth protruded, and he tried to bite.
Bill Ramsey was skeptical about the assertion that his werewolf behavior was caused by demonic possession. But ultimately, in desperation, he made the decision to go to America for an exorcism. A British newspaper paid Bill Ramsey $20,000 for the rights to his story. His private ordeal was now a public spectacle to be played out in rural Connecticut. It was here that the Warrens introduced him to Bishop Richard McKenna, a priest who had performed the dangerous ritual of exorcism many times before.
He needed to be exorcised, no question about that. I would think that being possessed by the devil is the worst evil that could befall anyone.
I didn't know what to expect. And when you enter in a realm of the unknown, you're obviously very, very scared.
Since Ramsey had shown superhuman strength, 6 bodyguards with stun guns protected the bishop. Rare still photos are the only visual record of the exorcism.
Lord permitted, the devil could easily kill the exorcist. As I proceeded with the prayers, it didn't seem to be himself. It was just some other person were taking over him. He himself seemed to almost go into a kind of a daze.
I remember him coming to me, at me with that stole, placing it on my head, and it's as if he'd hit me with a hammer almost, because I just did not know anything after that.
It started from behind him, and the muscles in the back of the neck all began to enlarge, and the ears began to point, and he howled.
Speak, devil. Be gone in the name of God. Leave him alone. Go back to how you came from. Gone.
Then the hands clawed in such a manner that no human hand could claw like that.
He had begun to make the signs of the cross on his forehead and on his breast, and then he would violently react and snapped his hand at me, and he snarled like an animal.
The lips rolled up, the teeth protruded, and he tried to bite.
How many of you are ready to come for what keeps you here? You are Satan. Leave him alone. When the devil did leave him, he came to himself.
As I came out the exorcism, you feel that you're a new person.
The man was freed. The man was freed.
I felt I wanted to kiss him, kiss Bishop McKenna, because what he'd done. I believe that I was ultimately possessed by the devil, yeah.
Was Bill Ramsey mentally ill or the victim of demonic possession? No one knows for sure, but one thing is clear. What the police, psychiatrists, and his family couldn't help, the exorcism did. Ramsey returned home to England, and in the 3 years since his exorcism, Bill Ramsey has not had a single violent episode.